Awesome. So let's start. And like at the beginning, I just want to talk to you for a minute. I will introduce myself, and then I will have a couple of questions to you about Flutter and animations in general. So I'm Dominik. I'm a Flutter GD working right now at Very Good Ventures, and we have an office in Poland right now. So if anybody is like interested in doing Flutter, we have some open positions. But either way, I'm not here to hire. I'm here to tell you about animations. And in Flutter, like you can do a lot of nice stuff with animations. And but before I will go deep into how you can achieve that and how you can improve that, I have a question. Like, do you do animations in Flutter? Like, any of you has ever done any animations in Flutter? Yeah, like only a couple of hands up. So I see that like half of you haven't done any animations. In this presentation, like some kind of base knowledge of Flutter would be necessary. However, like the code and everything will be very simple. If you have any other background like iOS or Android, you may see some kind of differences. I hope they will be on the positive side, right? To see how easy it is, how fun it is to make animations. And yeah, like I guess when you're doing any kind of mobile development, you have to cope with animations at some point. Animations are everywhere, from like very minuscule micro interactions up to the full-blown applications where you have like a whole page that is essentially made only for the user to like awe them and like inspire them to use the app. Like Reflectly in the middle one, it's been built like with the animations as like the main driver. There's also many more, and like the more apps you use, the more you see, especially as a mobile developer, and that like these animations are everywhere. And like for me myself, like I always wonder how would I implement this? Like what are the like steps involved? Like what are the components that made the animation possible? And today I want to show you some of the tricks, some of the ways that you can do animations in Flutter. And I hope that after this talk you will be like inspired, or like you will have some kind of ideas in your mind to actually try to implement these animations. Yeah, we will start from the basics. We'll discuss some kind of basic differences in how you can approach animations. And after that, we will go a bit deeper into some more complex topics. But don't feel afraid. I guess you should all understand this even though you haven't done any animations in Flutter before. So first thing that you have to understand in Flutter, and it happens on every presentation, you have to understand a basic difference between implicit and explicit animations. So you can think of them as like implicit animations are the things that animate themselves just by themselves. You don't have to do anything special to animate an implicit animation. Let's say you change the value from true to false, and the animation should run on its own. In explicit animations, it's a bit different. You actually have to drive it on your own. You have to be conscious. You have to maybe prepare some parameters. You have to have some kind of driver. It could be animation controller. It can be something else. But it's like more elaborate thing to do. And I want to show you today how to make it fun and easy. So implicit animations. In Flutter, you have a lot of different implicitly animated widgets, and they are there for you to make your life easier. Like on the right-hand side, you see animated container. And container in Flutter is a widget that allows you to specify a bunch of different parameters, size, color, decoration, and so on. And with animated container, you can animate all of them. So the only requirement is that the given parameter needs to be able to interpolate it, like from one color to the other, from one size to the other. And in this case, when you click on the container, it changes its size. There is a bunch of other animated widgets like opacity, container, padding, crossfade, and so on. And you can just use them to animate a given property. And this presentation has a companion app. Unfortunately, I cannot use my own computer, but where is my cursor? As Flutter is cross-platform and can work on web, I also uploaded my companion app to web. So you can try it out on your own. It works kind of okay on mobile, but the best performance you can get on web on desktop. So here's the animated container that you saw in the GIF, right? So whenever you click on that, it also changes. There is also a source code available if you want. You can check it out. And so whenever you click on that, some properties change. And like, I have a question to you. Like, here on the left side, you have a widget that's called animated physical model. And I wonder if anybody knows what animated physical model is. Yeah, so nobody, yeah? Because nobody uses that explicitly. And the case is that animated physical model is a widget that is only for you to simulate elevation. So whenever you have a material and like its elevation changes, the shadow also is closer or further away. So the physical model is up there only for this particular case. And there's also like animated align, right? So when you, in this case, when you click on that, it randomly changes its alignment. So whenever you have to move something around on the screen and you don't want to like calculate the coordinates and then drive it on your own, you can just say, hey, move this widget here, and it will automatically align itself. Yeah, so here is, let's go back to the presentation. So the syntax for any animated widget is very simple. You just need to rebuild this. And when you rebuild the widget, if you change any of the parameters, it will just animate on itself. So for case of the animated align, the only thing that you need to do is just to change the alignment here, right? So that's all that you need to do, and set state in order to change its alignment. However, sometimes the built-in widgets that you have in Flutter can be not enough, right? Like you may want to maybe animate a string, or maybe you want to animate some kind of a different construction than just like a container or padding or whatever. And here is where implicitly animated widget comes handy. And this is like a base class that many of the implicitly animated widgets use. And you can implement it on your own. And I found myself to use it like several times in many applications. So for instance, in case of this progress indicator, if you look closely, you will see that it's actually like smoothly animating between values. Because the default progress indicator will just render itself with a given value. If you provide it with 1, it will render like a fully covered. If you render it with 0.5, it will just instantly change to 0.5. But sometimes, especially let's say you have like an upload indicator or whatever, you want to like make the user feel comfortable, right, that something is happening or this kind of stuff. So here's where you can just like create your own implicitly animated indicator. And to do this, you just need to implement the widget. So you can see that this is implicit. It just extends the implicitly animated widget. And the easy thing to remember is that like implicitly animated widget is like a stateful widget. So here we just provide some properties like color, progress, whatever. And the magic happens in the animated widget base state class. It's like a stateful widget, state for a stateful widget. Here you have a build method, and in my case, I just have a progress indicator. And the thing that makes the magic happen is the progress evaluate animation. So animation object is the thing that is provided by the animated widget base state. And here I need to keep an instance of the progress. It's null at the beginning. And then I just need to, when I have the progress, I need to evaluate this when the widget rebuilds. So I also need to instantiate this. And in order to do that, I just have this override for each tween. So this widget will just, for every frame that I need, will just create a tween. And here are some properties that you need to provide: the current value, the target value. So if you rebuild the widget with like 1.0, this value will be 1.0. I clamp it so that it never exceeds 1.0. And here's where the tween, and we'll talk about tweens in a second, is created. Right, so this is like a case where you also want to maybe make not only like just a circular progress indicator, but also maybe the string that animates itself. And if you take a look at the application, you can also experiment this with on your own. And the only difference here is that you don't interpolate the progress indicator, you interpolate the string. And the easiest way to interpolate a string is with converting this to integer, right? So to recap, the implicitly animated widget is like a really nice tool if you want to make some kind of custom animation but you're not feeling confident, or maybe it's not actually necessary to have animation controller, you can interpolate anything that you think of that can be interpolated, like a integer. If you want, you can like convert string to the integer. You can create any custom class that can be interpolated. And yeah, this is kind of cool. One like trick that you can use, and I use it like pretty often, because when you have like some kind of micro interactions in the app, usually the implicitly animated widget is all you need. But sometimes you also need to have the explicit animations, and this is where like a lot of confusion happens. And I wonder, like, we have more people right now in the room, so I wonder, like, who of you used the animation controller in the past in Flutter? Yeah, a couple of people. And like, did you like it? Like, do you find animation controller understandable? No, I see like heads shaking, and I just want to like maybe show you that actually you don't have to fear the animation controller, and it hides some complexities. And later on during the presentation, I will show you how you can even avoid animation controller. But in the meantime, let's recap how to use the animation controller. So this is like a driver or engine, a thing that tells you where each frame happens, and you can use it to like have a value from 0 to 1 or whatever to drive your animations. And you can use the animation that is a result of animation controller for scale transition, size transition, and some more widgets. However, today we want to focus on the animated widget, which in practice is, so here are some examples, and you can also take a look at the demo application. There is another tab, and you can just have a look at some of the animations that use either animation controller or some other means of being controlled. Yeah, so this kind of stuff. So in order to use the animation controller for this very simple case of like a glowing indicator, yeah, nice thing. Maybe you have a notification, maybe you have a new event. You just want to like glow this a little bit. So the most important thing I would say is that you have to instantiate your animation controller, right? There are some properties that you need to pass, like vsync, and the vsync is like a thing that tells animation controller when Flutter renders each new frame. You provide the duration of the animation controller, and animation controller has a bunch of very useful methods for you. So for instance, in this case, you see that I call forward and repeat on this animation controller. And as the name suggests, it just will drive the animation forward, and when it ends, it will just repeat itself. But by passing the true property here, I tell the animation controller to repeat itself from the end to the start, and indefinitely it will just repeat itself. You have to remember, of course, about disposing this. And when it comes to the UI code here, in my build method, I know that the code is pretty small, but like the only important thing here is that I'm using the animated builder. Yeah, so there was a typo on the previous slide, but either way, animated builder is a thing, is a widget that will rebuild its builder, right? Rebuild its builder, yeah? Every time the animation controller ticks. So when it ticks, it means that it's a new frame, and this will be rebuilt. The child will be built only once when it's instantiated. So in this case, what I do, and this is kind of interesting because you can approach this kind of animation in like dozens ways. Yeah, you can make a border smaller or bigger. You can maybe, I don't know, put a circle that it expands or increases, yeah? So, but in my case, what I've done is that I'm animating the padding here. So actually what I do is just, I have a padding, and this padding changes from 0 to 8, right? And this means that actually the padding around the widget is expanding, and the underlying widget that is white is changing a little bit each time it changes. But it's just like a one way to do it. There can be many more. So animated builder is this like really handy thing that you can use when you're using animation controller. And like this is like a thing that works together really nicely. And the thing is that it doesn't have to be animation controller. It can be any listenable. So it can be change notifier. It can be even block, right? So you can put anything that can trigger the animated builder to rebuild. And in some cases, like folks even use like providers or this kind of stuff for animated builder, because if you don't want to use like change notifier provider or whatever, or like context.watch, it will also trigger the rebuild. And now is the time to talk about twins. And actually with twins, there's a nice story, because before Flutter, I've never known that there was such a word like twin. And recently I learned that actually this is a term that comes from animation. And like in like 90s or like even 80s, when Pixar was starting to work on computer animations, they actually developed a technique called in-betweening. And it's a thing that also comes from like traditional animation, where you like when you had a one frame and the other frame, and like the Donald Duck or whatever was moving, the frame in between was actually not like a frame where the Donald Duck was in between, but it was like a smooshed Donald Duck, right? So this went then again to the computer animation. It was called in-betweening. And here now in Flutter we have twins, which are like shortened version of this like a thing that is between one frame and the other frame, right? So this is like a nice, I would say, like a pattern that you can see, or like a chain of like history that even though I've never known about it before, it's like a pretty cool fun fact to know. And actually, if you Google for that, you will find that there's like this in-betweening even on Wikipedia. And as you may like realize by now, twins are like the things or like the classes that allow you to interpolate or map one thing from, in case of animation controller, from 0 to 1 to any other value. So for instance, on this slide, you can see that I'm creating a twin of offset. And offset in Flutter is just like a class that describes horizontal and vertical offset of a given point. And as this class is able to be interpolated, you can just provide the begin and end. And by default, it will create a mapping from 0 to 1 to from 100 to 200 and 50 to 300. It's easy, right? You just like map one function to the other. And the nice thing is that you can actually use twins in both ways. So if you have animation controller, you can drive this animation controller with a twin. Or if you have a twin, you can just animate this twin with animation controller, right? So the syntax sometimes can be confusing, but in practice, it's like you can work both ways with that. And twins, I wonder if I have any slide for that. Yeah, so I have a slide for twins, which is showing different usages of twins. So by default, twin will interpolate the thing linearly, right? So here you can see like this curve for this linear. This is the default twin from 1 to 0. However, what you can do also is you can, when you have this mapping done from 0 to 1, you can just apply mathematical functions on that to make this mapping a little bit different. Like maybe you remember from school, you were like maybe multiplying different functions like sine and cosine, and they were like changing. And you can do the same with twins. The syntax for that is very simple. You can just chain twins. So here I have my twin of offset from -2 to 0, from -2 to 2, and the y-axis is 0. And what I do is just I apply the curved animation instead of just animation controller. I provide the controller and a curve that I decided to use. And as you saw on this example, I can have like a lot of different curves that help me like ease the animation and so on. And what you will learn on any animation 101 lesson is that like users don't like linear animations. Like linear is not like a typical thing that happens in nature or in UI. You want to always add some kind of easing or bouncing or whatever. And like personally, I really enjoy the decelerate curve. It's like really nice when you have like to show a pop-up or whatever. The deceleration is like a kind of nice curve between like curves ease and linear. And like you can try it on your own whenever you do any button, any pop-up, anything like that needs to like show to the user. Need to be shown to the user, then this kind of curves can be really helpful. You can also do some crazy stuff like this kind of elastic transition or you can actually, if you have like a motion designer in your company, they can provide you with a custom curve, and you can just create a curve with the proper properties that describe the curve. Maybe it's like a Bezier or whatever, and you can just create a given curve on your own. Kind of cool thing, and you have like a full control over how the animation will work. But one problem that was visible on the previous slide was that you actually have to use animation controller for twins, and we don't like it. Like I saw you, like you were shaking your heads, like you don't like it, you don't understand animation controller, right? And here is where Twin Animation Builder is really, really helpful. This is another widget provided by Flutter, and what it does, it just like abstracts away all the hassle resulting from using the animation controller. And this is really nice thing because you can, again, use anything for your twin. So in this case, I just use double from 0 to 1. And also the really convenient thing is that Twin Animation Builder will remember its previous value. So if you rebuild the Twin Animation Builder with a different value, you will actually get a really nice interpolation from this previous value. Let me show you what I mean by that. So in the app, there is a page, and at the beginning, this is animated from 0 to 1, I guess. Yeah. So if you take a look at the very little font in the middle, like Hello DroidCon was animating from 0 to 1. But now I can animate this to ×10, and the previous value was remembered by the Twin Animation Builder. And if I animate to 30, yeah, you will definitely see what's on the slide, right? And what is happening here, I'm just applying the same twin for rotation, right? So I can just multiply this by pi, and it's like rotating really, really funnily, right? I know, it's like super funny joke. Awesome. Cool. These were like the basics, right? So after this like 10 slides or whatever, 15 slides, you should be able to write any animation you want in Flutter, actually, right? That's the truth. Like this is what I shown is like all you need to create pretty like nice and user-friendly animations. However, if you want to like elevate the knowledge a little bit, you have to learn some more advanced concepts. So staggered animations. Staggered animations is a thing that it basically means that you don't animate everything at once, right? So maybe you use like apps like Uber, Spotify, whatever. They always have this kind of like a nice transitions, not happening at once, but like slightly offset, yeah, so that like you feel like one item went from the bottom, other went from the side, and so on and so forth. And in case of Flutter, it's kind of difficult to figure out how to do it. I would say that the documentation that is provided for newcomers is not understandable for newcomers. And today I want to show you like a super handy trick that I use to make the staggered animations much more easy. So let me also show you that this is again available here, and yeah, you can see that the only thing that is happening here is that the cards are flowing from the bottom, and also the header is like appearing slowly, right? So nothing fancy, but we see that there's this stagger, right? So first we have first row, second, and third, right? And to do that, I usually would prefer to create something that like makes me confident or makes me feel familiar. And you saw that we had these like builders in Flutter, and there is nothing preventing you from creating your own builder, right? You can create your own builder with just like 10 lines of code, like you see here. So my home page animated builder is my custom class. It just and it accepts my transition builder. And on the bottom right, and also there, you can see that the my transition builder is just a function that returns a widget, and it will accept home page enter animation. And this home page enter animation will be a thing that I will be use I will use. And underneath, I'm just using my animated builder that we've seen a couple of slides ago. And the homepage enter animation is just like a descriptive class that allows me to just think about the chronological order of animations. I don't have to think about any widgets. I don't have to think about any state or whatever. I just need to focus on the order of animations. And I can use any name I want. So I just use header opacity, row 1 offset, row 2 offset, and I immediately know what it means, right? And what I do, I just initiate this with some values. So for instance, for the header, I want this to begin with 0, end at 1, and I'm applying the curved animation with some kind of easing. And the important part is that my curve is no longer just a curve, it's interval. And interval makes it that the resulting curve will squeeze into this like 0 to 0, 2 fraction of a timeline. So you can imagine that the timeline goes from 0 to 1, and if you have like a subsequent animation happening, you should like fit them inside this 0 to 1 section. And what I do here, I just have first animation, then the other one is a bit offset, and then again a bit offset, and you can just like apply more and more. And to use that, you just put everything into your homepage animated builder. Here you have your animation, and you have really nice human readable names for any animation that you have. Pretty convenient. You don't have to worry about like states or whatever, calculating things, assigning variables. And because you're using animated builder, underneath it has the same optimizations that you would have by just using typical animation builder. And so if you work in some kind of bigger companies, does anyone work with motion designer? Nobody. That's a pity. Like, so motion designers is like this special type of UX and UI designers, and they are pretty awesome in terms of like how they perceive design, because usually like we have this issue that like we get the Figma or Sketch or whatever, and there are screens, right? And the customer would like to have some kind of really nice transitions, but like there's nothing to tell you how to do it, right? So the motion design timeline is a really handy tool that allows you to like just orchestrate your animations and like put them into a timeline and understand what is happening. So for this case, like this is not animating, but like you can imagine that like fingers are showing one at a time. So this is also a tip for you. If you don't have a motion designer, become one. Like start to draft your animations first on paper or on some timeline to see how to orchestrate this. And then having that, you can just create your custom class, animate this, and have a really nice staggered animation happening. Cool. I still have like 10 minutes, so that's awesome. And let's have a look at some more advanced concepts, right? We have, like, some of you already know Flutter, right? Like you're hardcore Flutter developers. And for those that are not, you can become one in a few minutes. So this is like a sample that I prepared. And I don't know if there are any nerds that know Boyd's simulation. Boyd, yeah. Boyds are like just birds, but like computer birds. And here I'm using like a Dash mascot. And birds fly in flocks, right? And you can simulate this with like some properties. Of course, it's not like a real life, but you can change some properties and make like birds to turn much more easily. And the funny thing is that for some reason it starts like to oscillate, right, like back and forth with some properties, and you can add more of them. And like this was a desktop application before. I had to put it on web, and it kind of runs nicely. You see some stuttering. It's not like 60 FPS, but it's kind of cool, right? And you can change some properties. And for that, here's like where some kind of maths doesn't work nicely. Either way, this is something that like you would have to probably implement from scratch on your own. And in my case, I went full on like low level that you can do just within Flutter. And you remember that we passed something called vsync to to animation controller, and we will use the same thing here. So the vsync is just a ticker provider, and then again, this is just a class that gets notified by Flutter whenever new frame gets rendered. And we can use it also for ourselves to create something called ticker. And ticker is a thing that will just tick, i.e. call a function every time the ticker provider tells you that, hey, this is a new frame happening. And as this is a change notifier, it's too wide to see. It's a change notifier, and you can just call notify listeners. So if you have like animated builder, the animated builder will rebuild anytime when the notify listener is called. And this is kind of basic setup if you want to do some kind of a custom animation controller where it's you that like telling what should be like any value or whatever. And in this case, in my void simulation, I just prepared like a bunch of voids. I calculated everything, and I calculated the position. And take a look at this. There is a duration delta time. So if you have like a thing that needs to move from one place to the other, and you have its velocity, and you have the time that passed from the previous frame, you can calculate the distance. So if you have like a bird flying, you can easily calculate the distance just based on the basic physics. Right, so this is kind of cool, and this happens also. Let's say you may have like a custom button or whatever that needs to like wobble or whatever. You could also do this with this kind of approach. Yeah. The source code is available for the full simulation. You can take a look for yourself and like see like the maths that's behind that. The nice thing is that like usually you have so much time between each frame in Flutter that you can do pretty complex stuff in there. Of course, it's like one thread only, one isolate only. You can do some stuff in separate isolates, so you have to be careful. Maybe if you would like to reach out to the disk or whatever, it could be difficult. But like in case of like maths calculations, it's really easy to make something really cool. Like I made several smaller games like Mario or whatever, and this works pretty nicely. And this time between frames is pretty enough to do that. So to recap, ticker provider and ticker are the things that are like pretty low level when it comes to making animations. And you get the ticker provider from the ticker provider state mixin, and underneath it's just using the schedule binding or scheduler bindings to get the information about the frames rendered by Flutter. Another cool thing in Flutter are physics simulations. So in voids, I had to implement the whole maths by myself. I actually ported this, but don't tell anybody. You can also take like advantage of some physics simulations developed by Google. And in this case, you see that this red bar is like springing, like a spring. Again, if you had this on physics, you remember maybe equation for a spring. So this is also using the same equation underneath. And there's also a bunch of other like gravity, friction, scroll spring simulation. So if like a bounce on iOS during scrolling, I think this is calculated also by like one kind of simulation. And spring simulation just accepts some properties, and then by having your animation controller, our old friend, you can just animate the controller with your simulation. And this is kind of cool. The only thing that you need to change is the upper bound. I made like 1500, but it can be anything larger than 1, because like in practice, this like the value of the animation controller here will be the y coordinate of the spring, right? So in this case, it's like a pretty big screen, so 1500 was sufficient. Cool. We have 5 minutes left, so let's quickly recap what we've built here. So we have a lot of implicitly animated widgets, and I wonder if anybody actually here knows how many. Does anybody know? I think not. It's like over 20, maybe 30 implicitly animated widgets right now, and more incoming. It's like some strange ones, like this physical model, and also like pretty basic, like animated padding. You can use Twin Animated Builder, which if you don't want to use animation controller, it gives you this nice opportunity to have nice transitions and no animation controller to control on your own. But if you have to, don't fear to use animation controller. It's a really nice tool and can be pretty useful just by like writing 10 lines of code. Or if you don't feel like animation controller can be sufficient for you, use Ticker Provider. And for fun, for your game or whatever, you can use spring simulation. So imagine making a game where you like skate or whatever, and you use like a real friction simulation to simulate how the player is moving, right? This kind of stuff is pretty easy to do. It's not like full-on game engine like Flame or Unity or whatever, but if you have to do like a simple thing, maybe some kind of funny animation in the app, you have full potential to do it. If you want to learn more, like the source code for everything here that you saw is available on GitHub. The web demo is available on my website. It runs pretty nicely. I added this like dash animation today. It's a bit slow on web, but you can just run it on Windows or Mac OS without any issue. There's a bunch of different cool talks about animations online, and I highly recommend you to check it out. This presentation is also in the repository, so we can just go to the repository and get the PDF. And there's many packages. So if you like, you probably encountered some packages, and in this presentation I haven't talked about any of them because like I believe that in order to understand you have to like start from the basics. Like don't go for the fancy shiny thing, just start with like a vanilla thing. But again, at some point you will find that this is actually sometimes limiting, and there are nice tools that will make your life easier, right? So go ahead, check it out, and if you have any questions, I'm all ears and always happy to answer them. Thank you very much. Yes?
I have a question about the void simulation. So currently in Flutter, there's pretty much no way to do it on like the compute chair or anything, so it's all on the CPU. Right?
Yeah. But actually, like we just like during the when I was changing the presentation, we checked the CPU usage. So like the maths is happening on CPU, but the rendering is of course happening on GPU. Yeah.
Changes into this like container with a bunch of controls or whatever. So it seems like there's more involved there than just I don't know.
Yeah, I think they are using something called Flow or something like that, and this is again one of the widgets that like tell you when like new frame is happening, and you can like have a full control over your like a canvas. It's not a canvas, but like the render object, I guess, and you have like you can put things in a given position, orientation, and so on. And what I've done in Voids, I just use Custom Painter, right? And if you don't want to use Custom Painter, I guess you can use Flow to have like a full control where to put a given thing, and you can like put some kind of animation as a source for that, and it will nicely interpolate between each other. But like again, I haven't used it before. And I always fall back to Custom Painter for some reason. It's like a really nice API to use, and if anybody used like Canvas on in JS, it's very similar. Really nice thing to make custom UI and graphics. Any more questions?
Is there anything you do when building complex animations to avoid like the shader compilation jank issue?
Yeah, I actually had this slide in the past on my presentation, but like it takes a bit more time to explain. There is a obvious junk happening especially on iOS running on Metal. It's because the shaders that need to shaders for the animation need to be compiled before using, and it just happens like it freezes the frame, and you cannot like do this up front in most of the cases. So the only way to actually generate the shaders is to run the animation, and you can just get this. And there is ongoing work happening on improving this so that like you can just have integration tests that are run either on device or simulator that will generate the shaders, and then you can just bundle them with your application. They should be independent of the platform because we are running on Skia. but it's still another process that you need to do. I think right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but they implemented a thing that they cache the generated shaders across the launches of the application. So if you open your application and the user run the animation at least once, and it's not like parameterized or whatever, then on the next run or the next launch, it should be better. So one trick to avoid that is to actually delay running of the animation or run it off stage and then run it on the screen. But again, this is a hassle. But if you have, like, I know that Reflectly, the app for the diary app, right? So they actually had this issue, so they had to come up with their own solution because the first time animation was like the most important thing for them. So I think they have this like a pre-caching of the animation shaders done off stage, and then only then they run the real animation on the screen. But maybe they have changed it. I know that like they worked closely with Google to make it better.
Is there any package which help us to do the scrolling effect, scroll animation while the scrolling the page, especially for the Flutter web?
I don't know, frankly. Maybe there is. Like nice tool for animations during scrolling are slivers, and slivers allow you to like get the information about the current offset and so on. One idea that I tried in the past was like subscribing to the to the scroll controller and get the information from the scroll controller, and based on that do some animation. And this is also kind of cool because you only get notified when the user scrolls, and like you can like maybe show something from the side and so on. But no, I don't know any package that would help with that. Awesome. I have a nice surprise for you. I have a bunch of really cool holo stickers from my company VGV. So if you're into this kind of like putting stickers on top of your laptop or anywhere, I have a bunch of them, and I'm happy to give them away. So feel free to come forward, and we'll have some memory from the presentation maybe. Cool. Thanks a lot, everybody.